Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. Joining me once again, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on is today we are returning to the MCU for only the second time this year after Echo, way back at the beginning of the year, or at least on the TV front, on the Disney Plus exclusive front, for Agatha All Along. The first two episodes debuted this week, so we're going to be talking about Episode 1, Seekest Thou the Road, and Episode 2, Circle Stone with Fate, Unlock Thy Hidden Gate. Why'd we pick it? Because it is the new Marvel thing. The history lesson here. These two episodes originally released September 18th, 2024. The season as a whole is going to be 9 episodes long. We'll be running through October 30th, 2024, so perfect Halloween timing for them on that front. The episodes had about 40 to 45 minutes per episode so far. They seem to be going kind of in that like 42-minute-ish slot. In the Marvel TV timeline of things, we had, going back to June through July of last year, the probably one of, if not the weakest of the Disney TV Marvel shows, Secret Invasion. We had a nice bright uptick with Loki Season 2 in October and November of last year, followed by a little flurry of What If episodes, Season 2, December of last year. Echo, as I said earlier, dropped January 10th of this year. It's a little 5-episode run. And now we have Agatha All Along running here. Up next seems to be slated to be Eyes of Wakanda, which is, at least on Wikipedia, the TBD 2024 item that's kind of like next in the queue. But there is also Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is slated potentially as TBD 2024, which is an animated show, but it is supposed to be the Tom Holland Spider-Man, even if it's not going to be Tom Holland voicing him for that. Mm-hmm. So it is supposed to be like in, canon or whatever. Then we have slated for TBD March of 2025, Daredevil Born Again, and also TBD 2025, Ironheart, which I believe got some kind of showcase at the D23 event last month, but that's one that I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. Our roll call, the cast of characters for this. Our director for both of these first episodes is Jack Schaefer. She is the director, also the writer for one of these episodes. She's basically the creative showrunner for the series. Previous directing credits include a couple of like self-written, self-directed shorts from early in her career, Timer and Mr. Stash. Before now directing these episodes of Agatha All Along. She's also, as I said, our writer, creator, showrunner of the series. She's a writer of the first episode here. In addition to directing the episode, her other writing credits including Timer and Mr. Stash, as well as Olaf's Frozen Adventure, The Hustle, which was the gender-swapped Dirty Rotten Scoundrels thing from a few years back with Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson. She was also the creator and showrunner of WandaVision, and she was the screenwriter for the Black Widow movie. And then Laura Donney wrote the second episode here. Her previous writing credits include Ghosting the Spirit of Christmas and WandaVision. And now, this is maybe a new mini game that I'm going to introduce into the show, because I occasionally see this kind of stuff, and it always fascinates me, so I go down a rabbit hole of this. What channel do you think, or what channel or streaming service do you think Ghosting the Spirit of Christmas was on? A very, obviously, holiday thing kind of movie. Where do you think this was? Do you think this was a Hallmark thing? Do you think this was a...
Oh, that totally sounds like a Hallmark thing. I was going to be like, is it like Hallmark or Lifetime channel?
Those would be like some of the examples. You're going to lock in Hallmark?
Yeah, I'm going to lock in Hallmark.
This was produced for Freeform, the streaming service Freeform.
The streaming service what?
Sorry, not the streaming service. Freeform, the channel. It is in the ABC family of channels, but Freeform, its own channel. So as I see more and more holiday things, especially as we go into the holiday season, maybe I'll pull this up in terms of like, is this an A, Freeform, B, BET Plus, C, Hallmark? The one of the things I referenced in last week's episode.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
BET Plus.
BT Plus.
Call. So
Yeah.
that's why that's in my mind. Anyway, so yeah. And then our cast of characters here. Catherine Hahn, of course, returning as Agatha Harkness, having been in stuff like Crossing Jordan, was one of her first real kind of big breakout things. On the movie side, her big breakout was in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. She's also in Anchorman. She had a fun little memorable role in Parks and Recreation.
Yes, as Jan.
Yep.
So
she was
good.
in Transparent. She was, of course, Doc Ock in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. She's in Mrs. Fletcher, of course, in WandaVision, that spun off this whole character. And then in Glass Onion as well recently. Joe Locke as the teen, mystery character. Was in Heartstopper prior to this, and then now Agatha All Along. So still new on the scene in terms of acting credits. Patti LuPone on the complete opposite end of the spectrum there as Lilia Calderu. Of course, a Broadway legend, including 3-time Tony winner as Eva Perón in Evita, Rose in Gypsy in 2008, and Joanne in Company 2022, which I looked at that and I was like, wow, was the Neil Patrick Harris Company only 2022? That can't be right. And no, she's just played Joanne in Company a few times in recent years. But this one, in particular, I believe this one was the gender-bent company that had Bobby as portrayed as a woman.
Okay.
But like a lot of the other stuff was, it basically was like, hey, you're still a womanizer, you're just a woman as well now. Kind of in the role. Anyway, Aubrey Plaza playing Rio Vidal here. Also, of course, from Parks and Recreation, as well as Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Safety Not Guaranteed, Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, Ingrid Goes West, Legion, also in the Marvel universe, if not Marvel Cinematic Universe. That was the X-Men show from a few years ago. I don't remember who she played in it. But then also recently in White Lotus. Sashir Zameda playing Jennifer Kale from SNL. She's also in she was a voice in the zombies mode of Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Infinite War, sorry. I think of Infinite War. I might have mistyped that. It might have been Infinite Warfare. In the zombies mode of some Call of Duty game.
Yeah.
She's also in the Mitchells vs. Machines, Muppets Haunted Mansion, which we've done a D+ episode on in the past. Home Economics, and also in the Marvel side of things, she's in the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur animated series.
Oh, is she? Cool.
And she was recently in Unfrosted, which I believe was the Jerry Seinfeld Netflix thing about Frosted Flakes, or no, Corn Flakes.
It's Pop-Tarts.
Oh, Pop-Tarts, right. That's right.
Yeah.
There you go. Whatever. Jerry Seinfeld, the thing he was doing press for when he was basically like, I don't like that you can get canceled for things. That's a terrible Jerry Seinfeld, but
it's okay. Jerry Seinfeld, we now know, sucks because it should be
because of the press for Unfrosted.
Well, it also the press run for Unfrosted also brought people being like, oh yeah, he married a high schooler, and all of us younger folks are like, I'm sorry, he did what? And it's like, yeah, no, he had to go pick up his girlfriend from high school. Yeah, he's a scumbag.
Yeah. Ali On as Alice Wu Gulliver, previously has been in stuff like Billions, Orange is the New Black, and Raising Dion. And lastly here, Deborah Jo Rupp as Sharon Davis, a.k.a. Mrs. Hart, of course, from That 70s Show and now That 90s Show, as well as, of course, WandaVision. A little bit of trivia for you. Previous titles, before they landed on Agatha All Along, were Agatha, House of Harkness, Agatha, Coven of Chaos, Agatha, Darkhold Diaries, and the one that really cemented that this is clearly a gag setting up for the Agatha All Along reveal. The one day that Disney had gone out and announced it's going to be Agatha, the Lying Witch with great wardrobe. It was like, all right, this is weird.
That's I remember
good.
I like that. I
remember
clever.
seeing that tweet basically in my feed back to back with the one being like, all right, we've just been kidding. Of course, we were going to call it Agatha All Along. It's been Agatha All Along.
Okay.
So yeah, because the running thing for a while was like the show just kept getting a different name. When we talked about it back, I had it in the doc back when we, did the like, here's the next thing up on the slate for Echo. It was Agatha Darkhold Diaries at that time. So that's, how I described it last time in the like, what's up next on the slate. This is the first live action treatment of a Marvel Comics character who does not have their own comic book series. Just a full-blown spin-off because people liked Catherine Hahn's performance so much from WandaVision and wanted to explore that character some more.
I mean, we'll get into it when we get further in.
Yep. Some other trivia here. Similar to WandaVision, Episode 1 pays tribute to TV history. This time is a nod to shows like Mare of Easttown and The Killing, with the opening quote-unquote credits, of course, listing the citizens of Westview, and the Agnes of Westview show is based on the Danish series Wanda Vis Dyson. And notably, The Killing is based on a Danish series called Forbrydelsen. I apologize if I completely butchered that, but yeah, like I saw that and I just was like, hilarious. Didn't know that it was a direct pull against The Killing until doing a little bit of research for it. But I was like when the captions came up and were like, true crime version of the theme song plays, and started seeing like the character names and Agnes O'Connor and stuff.
Yeah.
And realizing, it's fake credits within the credits kind of thing.
Yep.
I was like, clever. Nice tie back to WandaVision while helping set up, this universe and what Agatha's been up to.
Yep. Has also like a good like a true detective vibe to it as well. Yeah. Like I'll say they nail the atmosphere in the opening. Yeah. I was like
everything having that like gray blue color grading.
Yep.
It
was just, I'm like, they're still so goddamn good. I love it.
The pendant that Agnes/Agatha finds at the crime scene that totally wasn't a beer bottle cap, which is what I thought it was when she's pulling it out of the... I was like, that's a weird thing to be pulling out. Is quoted as North American, New England maybe, late 17th century, from the pawn shop jeweler. With that being a very direct reference, of course, to the Salem witch trials, which is, and that pendant is also a notable element of Agatha's appearance in the comics. Her brooch, basically. We, of course, learned that dialogue and rhetoric, known history of learning and debate, is called out as an acronym for the Darkhold. Although I am personally not a fan of the first "and" being counted as an A, and the second one they put as an ampersand, so they don't have to count it in the spelling of the acronym, but whatever. But fun little extra thing there, the author, Andrew Ugo, is an anagram of Wundagore, a.k.a. where the Darkhold was created and also where it was destroyed. And there's also like multiple references to Multiverse of Madness, like the body being like crushed by something heavy, i.e. the big temple of, the Darkhold. And the, there's like Eastern European soil under her fingertips and stuff like that. The burnt out bookshelf in the library where they had said, we've got multiple other copies of that. All the copies having been burnt from Wanda's like sacrifice at the end of quote unquote sacrifice at the end of Multiverse of Madness, destroying every other copy of the Darkhold across the multiverse. We get reference to Nicholas Scratch, who is Agatha's son in the comics, who would go on to become a powerful sorcerer and villain. We'll see if they make further appearances in the show. Seems like we're setting them up to.
Yep. When I saw the names of the plaques and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way they're doing Old Scratch or Nicholas Scratch.
Yep. Similarly, I didn't pull it in here, but the Salem 7 are Nicholas Scratch's children.
Yep.
In the continuity or in the comics lore.
The thing about it is the Nicholas Scratch stuff happened in her like her under the spell and stuff. So I'm really curious, like how's this going to be pulled out? Sure. And she said the Salem 7 are coming. Like after it ties directly into the Salem 7 and their comic book counterparts, directly into it as like not really people, more spirits than people sort of thing. And it's like, we'll get further into it. Sorry.
Yep. Last bit of trivia I have here. The painting that Agnes sees in the interrogation room when like the facade is starting to break is of Macbeth and the Three Witches. It is also a painting that she has, and we see briefly in Agatha's house behind the Welcome Coven paper sign that the teen hung up and that Agatha tears down. So, and of course, obviously, the Three Witches of Macbeth being some of the most iconic witches in folklore and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I have pulled in for the trivia. There might be other fun Easter eggs out there, but go check out, I pulled a couple of these from like BuzzFeed's article on like 27 things from episodes 1 and 2. I'm sure there are a ton more out there and stuff like that. So, so what did you think of these first couple episodes of Agatha All Along, Cameron?
I was definitively impressed. I really came into this being kind of like open to whatever it was. I'm like, it could be good, it could be bad, it could be cringe, it could be interesting. It's a spin-off of a character who doesn't even have their own comic book line. Like, I'm not really sure where this is going. Like, I loved Agatha when it was the WandaVision show. She was definitively one of the highlights as the kind of villain there the entire time. But when we get further into this show and see episode 2 in particular, we're immediately getting into kind of the Western sorcery, so to speak. Doctor Strange's sorcery, Wanda has her own like chaos magic side of stuff. But because Carmitage and everything is in the Himalayas, you have that feeling like very much like Eastern, like the Eastern esoteric sort of like magic going on. And so getting sort of the Western counterpart to that, where you see, very much it is more about chants and more about ceremony and all of that sort of stuff that, like you said, the iconic, like the Three Witches from Macbeth are the most iconic witches in that everything we sort of see Western witches as comes from that inspiration of standing over a cauldron. Like that whole sort of like motif was like, you go back to older stories about witches and they're really just old crazy ladies who live in the woods when they're villains, so to speak, in like old folklore. Mm-hmm. We don't get into this like toil in trouble.
Double, toil in trouble.
Yeah, thank you. Double.
Cauldron bird and no. I've lost it now, but
but like that whole aspect comes from that scene in Macbeth, and then going forward, then to like the Salem witch trials and all of that, it continues on. Like it has such an impact in pop culture and just culture in general, and so getting into sort of, and I think one of the things I like about this is it had a similar, like enough of a feel that I enjoyed about like the first like season or 2 of Sabrina, the Netflix series, of, let's get into this. Let's get into kind of like the kind of folklore, like folkish lore aspect of witchcraft in America. And we get that. And I love that every aspect about it I thought was just absolutely fantastic. Was really kind of like, I don't know how to feel about the show when it started. And then by the end, we get to the end of the first episode, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about like this sort of reveal and stuff. Episode 2 sold it for me though. Episode 2, the teen, him now having like an impact in the story and his kind of chemistry and dichotomy with all the other witches felt really, really good, really, really genuine, and just really, really nice. I really enjoyed the fanboy aspect of it, but it never came off as like too cringy of a fanboy thing. Which I feel like it definitely could have gone over in that moment, but they pulled that back enough.
Yeah. I appreciate that they dropped both these episodes at once, because if it had just been the first episode, like I would have had this vibe of like, are they going to just continue? I guess maybe not by the very, very end of it where she has broken out of the spell, but like the majority of the first episode's like, oh, they're keeping the like it's a TV show within a TV show kind of vibe to it. That's interesting, and let's see where that goes. So I appreciate that episode 2 really gets into like we're building the coven together, and we're gonna walk the witch's road, and that's kind of going to be the thrust of this story that we're going to tell. We've got like the new cast of characters. The first episode does a fun job of, especially because I went back and like rewatched the first couple episodes of WandaVision. I loved seeing all of like the citizens of Westview pop up as like the supporting cast here, and a fun little, another little Easter egg thing that I didn't call it in the trivia, but I appreciated in like some of the reading breakdown, the character Dottie from WandaVision, who pops up in here as like the librarian.
Yeah.
I love her name, like her character name in the show, Sarah Proctor. Obviously, a big reference to the Crucible. Of course, another iconic Salem witch trial type story.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that. But yeah, like seeing like the other characters pop up, and then seeing them like in their Westview forms when Agatha comes out buck naked, like confronting and having no shame, and the neighbor being like, "All right, well, we're doing this, okay? Hey, neighbor, we kind of been like placating you because you got into a real true crime vibe the last few days. Loving that like we get that from like their perspective of like, and the whole like we don't say her name like when Wanda comes up and stuff, like they're clearly all dealing with their trauma and have tried to put it behind them, but knew that something was still clearly going on with Agatha here.
Yeah, like it was very nice that everybody was like, hey, like it's like, oh, they are still like they kind of, it was part of the show before the WandaVision show that this was like a tight knit community, but it's very clear now that this is like, maybe it's because of the shared trauma of going through all of that together, but them all like taking care of her and like making sure she had groceries, all that stuff like really speaks to like everybody does care about each other there.
Yeah.
Which makes it double hilarious because clearly the person who's not super chill about it and was like antagonistic is Sarah Proctor, like the lady. It's like she probably helped out begrudgingly.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, like her husband being like, "Hey, Agnes, you got to go home," and it's like, was she like in their yard or something? And he's like, "You got to go home, Agnes," or like, anything like that. And then also shout out to like the son being like, and her being like covering up and then like directing him away and then like coming back for her husband, like being like, "Let's go," and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure."
Yeah. Good. Loved all that. Loved the like WandaVision still stands out there. Like it is behind Loki as like my favorite Disney Plus thing that they've done. I think that is like,
I would agree with that.
It's like the most creative and most fun just in general in the way that they tell an interesting story through the lens and history of television. And so this kind of being a fun little continuation of that for this one episode, in a different style that is like, it is the evolution. Like the WandaVision, we kind of ended with like the Malcolm in the Middle show of the 90s kind of thing before everything kind of fell down. So I like that. Yeah, this is very much like the show of the, new millennium, the true crime show, your true detective, you're the killing, those kinds of shows. It's very much like, here's the darker tone. Our detective's the anti-hero who's, just getting out of, disciplinary leave kind of thing for punching a suspect. And
makes you think that she probably punched a real person, and that's when they're like, aren't you on leave because you punched somebody?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Love so much of that. But then also, especially in that first episode, loved seeing the little cracks in the seams.
Yes.
Both like lines hitting Agnes in a different way and her not understanding why. Even before, like, when Aubrey Plaza shows up as Rio, it's very much like in universe, oh, she's the antagonist, she's the FBI, she's the Fed coming in here, but we have a history. So I like that they're kind of already, establishing that within the, show within the show kind of thing. But even before that, we see, like, images... and this probably ties into some of the Nicholas Scratch stuff. Like we see one shot of Agnes where she's got like a plant on the desk, and then we cut back cut to the chief, and we cut back to her, and now there's like a picture frame of a kid on the desk or something like that. And so like we see those, cracks starting to break of like what's the real thing here. But yeah, then Aubrey Plaza comes in and just is deliciously Aubrey Plaza about everything. And I can't wait to see more of her over the course of the run, especially given that like she, in their showdown at the end of the first episode, has this whole thing about like, my heart is black, that, and then we get the reference to a black heart being one of the Coven members later. So it'll be interesting to see if she presumably ends up joining the Coven, and what the, continuing to explore the backstory there. And I loved her showing up and being like, do you even know why you hate me? And it being another one of those things that like you can see Agatha trying to break out of the spell, but Agnes is still a blank, not understanding it there. But I love how quickly she kind of gets back into the swing of things once she does. It was a great fun sequence of her going back through all of the costumes from WandaVision and all the different versions of Agnes to break free of the spell and claw her way out, as Rio says. And then I'm when we get into the second episode, I'm very curious, especially as somebody who doesn't really know the character so much, apart from like, here's explainer videos about who Agatha Harkness is, and all that stuff. So like, I don't know much of the Nicholas Scratch stuff, apart from the meme that was already making the rounds of like, oh, he's Mephisto. He's gonna be Mephisto, or the teen's gonna be Mephisto, or something like all of the like Mephisto theorizing that came from WandaVision is already bubbling up here in this one.
Oh yeah, there's I saw plenty of stuff about it being like, when I was like looking it up, it's like people are like, oh, is this Wiccan? Is the teen Wiccan?
Seen that too, yeah.
Of being like, it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Like when how old is the teen?
Yeah.
Because like
I love that there is like the mystery around that, and how it's like magically subverting or it's magically hidden from her. And when he starts talking about his backstory, we get like the ringing in the ears, and like clearly it's just in her head or whatever. It's just blocking her out. Because
people who don't know, in the comic books, something similar to WandaVision does happen. Wanda does an alternative reality, but it affects the entire world. And it is...
No more mutants.
Yeah, no more mutants. The very famous House of M series, which are still like standout, really great stories. But in that, when her children essentially dissipate, they are in fact like incarnated as other kids. Like other children are born, and then they grow up, and over time they're drawn to each other and drawn to Wanda. And it's revealed that her children were basically reincarnated and born through alternative means, despite the fact that biologically they are still her and quote unquote Vision's children.
Yeah.
And Wiccan is the child who inherited, but basically they get the Maximoff twins' powers. So you have the speedster, and then you have Wiccan, who inherits his mom's magic. And canonically, like, this is why the piece works for me, is because he is gay. And also, canonically, he's dating Hulkling, which would be a very interesting follow-up to, at the end of She-Hulk, like, are they going to put Hulkling and Scar into the same character? Do we get some, like...
Is it we get a glimpse of Boyf on
yep.
the phone? It's like, is that what he looks like in non-Hulk form?
Maybe.
It definitely isn't what that actor looked like in non-Hulk, but whatever.
Sure, and it could be that's his current boyfriend anyway. The point being is that, like...
But yeah, it's all setting up for a Young Avengers, as a lot of these have done.
It'd be sick. I'm just saying. I already love the teen as an actor, like the character. I'm like, if you're like, hey, this is actually Wiccan, and it's I forgot if it's Tommy or whatever his name is, whatever the name of one of the kids is. But if it's that Maximoff, like, let's go. I'm down for it. I loved the kids. I thought the kids were great. I really enjoyed them in WandaVision, and I'd be super down for more of that. So
yeah,
it works for me. If it's something else, cool too. Like, here's the thing. I definitely know he's not Nicholas Scratch, because Nicholas Scratch is the parent of the Salem 7, is not going to be as terrified as he was of the Salem 7. But like, yeah, it's awesome. Or he could just be an original character, or like totally like the other witches are original characters. Shout out also to Mrs. Hart being like not a witch.
Yeah.
She's just really good at growing plants. And
and that there is that is one I'm curious to see how that plays out.
I'm really curious.
Because it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if she is another witch that was in deep cover, or something like that, and or was keeping an eye on Agnes.
Or she could just be a witch, because he says witches are drawn to each other within like a 8 mile radius.
Yeah, just 3 mile radius.
3 mile radius.
The whatever rule it was. Yeah, where he's like, "Oh, write that down. There's a pen in the glove." She throws out the pen.
So good. That scene's one of those scenes that's so good. But she mentions it, like within a 3 mile radius. And guess who's just been living down the street?
Everybody who has like latent, powers or whatever. Like, there's always a coven around you. Is like, oh, that's fascinating. Is that like, you like in some form or fashion.
Yeah, there's always enough witchy people around you, and it turns out, hey, her green thumb is actually like her manifestation of power, but she just doesn't know it. She's just always been good about growing like plants.
Yeah.
There you go. That works. Also, like, I love that you brought back a character from WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I think, like a stellar addition having her there.
Yeah, and I love I love her being like, "Hey, Hart, no, that's the name that Wanda gave me. That's the name
Sharon that Wanda gave me.
Yeah, I'm Mrs. Davis, Sharon, and like, I love when they're down in the basement and doing the song, and like, you get so many shots in like the spin around camera thing where like it just cuts off right before seeing her every time, and I was like, no, I want to see how she is reacting to all of this, like. Because there are a couple moments where they keep on her, and it is like, late in the song, she's picked up the chorus or whatever, and she's getting into it and having fun with it. But it was very, like, I wanted to see if they were going to play with the idea that, like, oh, this is unlocking something for her, and like, and she doesn't know that it's there or something. But yeah.
Well, when they cut to her, she goes, were we all supposed to know this song?
Yeah. Yeah.
And no, but I did love how she picked up on it towards the end. I also love that it's also a bit of a nod to that 70s show with the spinning camera in the basement. Like, great. And then Agatha thinking, well, okay, Witch's Road is not unlocking, so backup plan. I have these witches that hate me.
Yeah.
I'll piss them off and absorb their power.
Yeah.
And and then it turns out they summon the road.
Absolute best line of these first 2 episodes. Sashir Zameda turning to Patti LuPone and being like, well, if she wasn't so pitchy. Just be like, perfect. Yeah. No notes.
Oh, I have perfect pitch. Thank you for
just absolutely make a pitchy joke at the 3-time Tony Award winner.
Yeah. It's so good. That second episode, I think, is what sells it. If we get more of that, that's cool. Also, I'm like, why are they all taking off their shoes? And then immediately cuts to the part of the book where it's like, you must walk barefoot along the hallowed path. I was like, okay. Not just some weird...
Oh, yeah, in the end credits.
Yeah, not just some weird foot thing.
Yeah.
Because I was like, did Quentin Tarantino direct this episode? Like, what's going on? Why is there so much feet?
Yeah. I like, in the introduction of the Coven, I love that kind of they're playing with, like, each coven has their own specialty. I love that we get Patti LuPone as like the divination witch. We get Sashir Zameda as like the potions person. We get to see her in full like influencer, candle maker, hippie kind of thing, selling to yuppies. And I love then the reveal and the teen turning on her, being like, "Oh my god, I have such a I follow you, and hey, what's all this legal stuff you're going through?" And she just like, allegedly, turns on a dime and like immediately is like, oh, so that's how this is gonna go. Okay.
But I love how he's like, here's the address. Like, had it written down on a piece of paper. Also, her taking the jade egg on the way out, and she goes, "You'll know where you can find this. If you don't know what the jade egg is, it's a Kegel tool women use, and you can Google it, but make sure you're either on incognito mode or like on a like you're not publicly out looking at it.
Sure.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a yuppie old like rich white lady thing.
Yeah.
Anybody can do Kegels though.
We've got
Shout out to Kegels.
Alice Wu Gulliver, introduced as the Protection Witch. I'll be curious to see how they kind of explore like her little backstory nugget that we get of like, oh, her mom was like a big recording artist who like just recorded and, you know, has the most popular version of the Witch's Road song.
Well, she's a blood witch, which means like she's a child of a witch.
Yeah.
And child of like a famous witch. Also, she was a cop. And normally I'm like a cap, but she's a former cop.
Yeah. Now working security in a mall, what, Limited 2 or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's she's a mall cop at the Westview Mall.
Yeah.
Which once again, within a 3-mile radius.
Like, I thought we were in like a specific, like a Claire's or something.
Oh, it was like Hot Topic or something.
Yeah, Hot Topic kind of story.
Yeah.
We were absolutely fully in one of those.
Because the teen makes comment, he goes, I know like my aesthetic is like it gives it off, but like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just looking forward to seeing kind of more of the dynamic of this cast of characters together. And I'm curious because we get a cohort of animal familiars or like a, you know, like a druid-esque kind of witch doing beast shape of like we get a crow, we get a rat, we get the wolf, you know, following Agatha, and clearly she like clocks each of them and you know makes note of him. So
the crow looks right at her, and that's freaky as hell.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see like who that ends up being, if that's, you know, Aubrey Plaza's character in disguise or something like that.
I felt it was like portents of the Salem 7, like because it was getting closer and closer to sundown.
Sure.
And the wolf shows up at like in the same spot the Salem 7 pop up.
Yeah.
So I thought it was either portent or that's the like kind of like the signal or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, that was my interpretation of it. But it could just be also Aubrey Plaza's character.
Yeah.
In like animal form.
Yeah. Or somebody we haven't met yet.
Yep.
You know, some magical, mystical being.
Shout out to the bunny coming back though.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
What was it? Mr. something, I don't know.
Yep.
No, senior Scratchy.
That's right.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
Senior Scratchy.
Yeah, Senior Scratchy.
Yep, I remember that now, being the tease of Nicholas Scratch from WandaVision. Shout out to the line "Babies are delicious."
Such a good line.
And I love the weird little game that Catherine Hahn and Patti LuPone played at the divination thing of like, please tell us where our gold bars are, and she plays along, kind of comes up with this whole thing, and then goes fully into like, I know who you are and I know your reputation. I'm not like, and then we see her get like the real divination beats and moments. So yeah, be curious to see. And again, I'm very curious to see if Mrs. Hart / Sharon Davis / Deborah Jo Rupp was supposed to be, you know, the Coven member, or if it was, you know, intended for like the Aubrey Hart or the Aubrey Plaza character, Blackheart reference that was made. Seems too pointed to be coincidence there. So, yeah, trying to think if I have any other notes or anything else I wanted to shout out.
Well, I saw online something about her being a warrior witch, not like a green witch. So
yeah, true. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Any final thoughts from you, Cam, before we move on?
Yeah, I think this is good so far.
Yep. All right. Then we'll dive into the report card. We grade from A+ to F for these first couple episodes. What are you thinking for Agatha All Along?
It's starting off at like a good B+. Like, I feel like there's plenty of room for the show to grow to get to like an A level, but it also could take a sharp turn and go down to like a B- C+. Like where we're at now, I would have said this is like a B, after episode 1, I would have said like B minus, C plus. The upgrade to B plus is due to how strong episode 2 is. If they continue on that trajectory, I don't see why this couldn't be higher. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, for me, I think it's probably just a flat B. I'll obviously stick with it and keep watching it and whatnot. I think a lot of it for like it's a very curious piece for me because it's like I don't know the character. I didn't have any kind of like apart from WandaVision any kind of like pre-existing relationship with this character. I don't and at least in WandaVision I knew Wanda, I knew Vision, and there was a curiosity of like what's going on with them. What's the whole meta thing of like this, TV through time kind of aesthetic that we're seeing. And also, yeah, how is Vision back? What is the mystery behind that show? This one I'm less interested in the mystery, and because it's just like, hey, here's a whole bunch of new characters, I'm just not invested in them even after, 2 episodes kind of thing. I think it's got a stellar cast, and I think I will be invested and interested in all these characters kind of by the end of things. But just out the gate, I'm like, I don't know. I think Agatha is still painted so much like a villain that I'm like, it's a hard to root for her kind of thing. And maybe the intent of this show is going to be like turning her from villain to her, more modern kind of interpretations of like, oh, she uses her magic for good in the world or something like that. And maybe maybe that will be what the Witch's Road kind of does to her. But yeah, right now I'm curious. I think there's a lot of fun interplay between this cast, but because we really only get them in bits and pieces in episode 2, it'll be much more like where do they go from here that I'll be able to connect to. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. But just from the jump here, a couple disjointed episodes, not bad, but I don't have the hook yet for what is this season going to look like. But I'm interested to see where we go from here. So yeah, shout out to that. And we will likely, this will probably be like, because we have kind of like, all of like the October stuff mapped out, this will probably be like, we'll circle back to this first week
Towards
of November,
yeah,
after the finale is done, is most likely the plan there. So it'll be November 1st, I think, will be the because the finale is on October 30th, presumably a Wednesday, so I think that would be Friday, would be the 1st. So this will be we'll circle back and see how this all shakes out post our Halloween month next month. So there we go. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. Disney Plus is going to recommend WandaVision, of course. If you want some additional thoughts to go along with WandaVision, That D Plus Show episodes 57 and 62 were our WandaVision-centric episodes. 57, I believe, was like the first 4 episodes of WandaVision, and then 62 was like the full season. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness corresponds with That D Plus Show episode 131. Werewolf by Night was That D Plus Show episode 146. God, that would have been 2 Halloweens ago, probably. At this point. Yeah, because we're in like the 230s or something episode wise. Also, Werewolf by Night in color, which we didn't do a That D Plus Show for, but it's the exact same thing, just in color.
No, I don't watch it in color. It's better in black and white.
I mean, they played with the color and made things pop, especially because they like some of the color had to be super saturated to make it look good in black and white. Like I went back and watched it in color when they released it last year. We just didn't do an episode on it, but it was good. It was fun, and it's still an interesting, weird, extra thing in like the TV space of like this weird random one-off. We have Moon Knight, which corresponds with Disney Plus or That D Plus Show episodes 118 and 123. Goosebumps, which we don't have a That D Plus Show for yet, but that is planned to be one of our Halloween things next month. Hocus Pocus 2, which weird that they picked that one instead of Hocus Pocus 1, but whatever. We did that. That'd be another one from a couple years back. It's episode 145, so it was the one right before Werewolf by Night.
Yep.
2 years ago. And then last year we did the 2023 Haunted Mansion, and that's the last recommendation here, episode 191 for the Haunted Mansion. Extracurriculars, you watching anything else on Disney Plus, Cam? Or pretty much just knock these episodes out so you can come here and record the podcast and call it a day?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned last week I'd circled back and watched a couple WandaVision things. I don't think I watched anything else on Disney Plus this week. I think that was probably it. So yeah, just some Agatha All Along. But fun nonetheless. So that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about these first couple episodes. You can follow Cameron at RevCabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
I want to give a shout out to our spoiler cast on Astro Boy last week.
Astrobot.
Sorry, I said Astro Boy, didn't I?
Yep.
My bad. Astro Boy, very different property. Astrobot, we did a spoiler cast on it. We had a great time with it. I just brought my Trevor's copy back to him. Incredible game. Go check out what we have to say about it. Both spoiler free and spoiler thoughts are in there. So there you go.
There you go. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and I will shout out next week's That D Plus Show. We're going to do Inside Out 2. I believe it drops on Wednesday next week on Disney Plus. So it'll be time for us to watch it and talk through it. Did you see Inside Out 2?
I have not seen it yet. So this will be my first time.
That's right. So that'll be a fun one. I went and saw it in theaters. Obviously went to be basically the biggest movie of the year so far, and one of the top 10 movies of all time, domestic gross wise, I believe. So shout out to Pixar finding its groove again, but unshout out to the news stories that we're breaking this week that was like, hey, they had a lot of layoffs, and the people who got laid off did not get the Inside Out bonus for Inside Out 2, despite the months and years that they may have worked and crunched on it. So that's some bullshit from Disney.
Also, some of the stories like what was coming back from like heads of production about the notes that they had.
Hey, let's make let's make Riley less gay coded kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, they just said make Riley less gay. That was a note, and it's like,
not a fan of Bob Iger's second regime, but there's also a piece of it hadn't all been Bob Iger.
No, it wasn't. It was also
some of it was Bob Chapek.
Yeah, Bob Chapek.
So. Disappointing there, but we will talk about the Inside Out 2 that was made and share our thoughts and some trivia and stuff on that next week. So stay tuned for that. And then we go into our month of Halloween stuff. We're past the era of the Halloween Town movies, so we got to figure out other stuff. But as we mentioned, we got Goosebumps in the works there. We got... of course, Treehouse of Horror. We got a few more episodes of that we'll dig into, and we'll figure out. We'll lock those in by next week's episode to plot that out for October. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. If you like what you heard, please remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other. Class dismissed.